Welcome back to Beyond the Scoreboard. I'm your host, Mehmet Fatih Aksar. Today, I want to begin with a simple question that every coach should ask themselves at least once every season. What's my true responsibility? Well, at first, the answer seems obvious, right? Many people would immediately say, well, to win basketball games, of course. Others might answer, I'm here to develop players. Now, both responses sound reasonable, but neither is completely accurate without understanding the environment in which you coach. One of the biggest misconceptions in our profession is believing that every coach has the same job. We often watch NBA coaches, EuroLeague coaches, national team coaches, or successful university coaches and assume that if we simply copy what they do, we will become better coaches ourselves. But coaching doesn't work that way. A coach's responsibility is to determined by the environment they work in. Every level of basketball has different expectations, different resources, different timelines, and different measures of success. The mistake isn't choosing development or performance. The mistake is failing to recognize which one should guide your decisions in your current environment. Too often we treat coaching as though there is one universal formula. Well, there isn't. A coach working with 8-year-olds should not be evaluated the same way as an NBA coach. A national team coach preparing for an international tournament shouldn't be expected to coach the same way as someone building a youth academy over several years. Likewise, a university coach faces different realities than a community coach. Different environments require different priorities. That doesn't make one coach better than another, though. It simply means their responsibilities are different. Well, let's start with youth basketball. At the grassroots level, the development should lead every decision. Winning games is enjoyable, and competition certainly has value, but the purpose of youth basketball extends far beyond the scoreboard. A young athlete needs to learn how to move, how to make decisions, how to communicate with teammates, how to handle adversity, and how to enjoy the process of improving. Those lessons create the foundation for future success. Unfortunately, many youth coaches unintentionally begin coaching like professionals. They shorten their bench because they want to win tournaments. They simplify offensive responsibilities so their best players dominate the ball. They become afraid of mistakes because mistakes may cost a game. But mistakes are part of learning. If young players are never trusted to make decisions, they never develop the confidence and understanding needed to become complete basketball players. Now let's move to high school basketball. There's where the picture begins to change. Competition becomes more meaningful. League standings matter. Provincial championships matter. Players begin thinking about university opportunities and the next stage of their careers. Performance naturally becomes more important than it was in youth basketball. However, development should still remain a central responsibility. High school coaches have the opportunity to prepare athletes not only for the next game but for the next level of basketball. Winning and development should work together, even though there will always be moments when those priorities compete with one another. Then we arrive at university basketball. Here in Canada, youth sports basketball occupies a unique position. Many programs speak proudly about developing student athletes, and I believe many coaches genuinely care about helping their players improve. University basketball provides an outstanding environment for athletes to grow academically, personally, and athletically. At the same time, university basketball is highly competitive. Coaches recruit talented players. Conference standings matter. Playoff qualification matters. National championship aspirations matter. Like coaches at many competitive levels, university coaches are often evaluated by results as well as by the experiences they provide their athletes. Those realities naturally create tensions between development and performance. And that brings us to an important question. When a program says it is committed to player development, what exactly does that mean? Does it mean every athlete is being challenged to improve? Does it mean players are becoming more adaptable basketball players? Or does it mean players are becoming exceptionally good within one specific system? Those are not the same thing. A player may spend 4 or 5 years mastering one offensive philosophy, one defensive system, and one set of terminology and one style of play. Within that environment, they may perform at an extremely high level. But when they graduate and join another team with different concepts and expectations, they may struggle to adapt. That doesn't necessarily mean they weren't developed, it simply raises an important question. Are we developing adaptable basketball players who can succeed in different environments? Or are we primarily developing players to succeed within our own system? Each coach should reflect on that question. Now, let's take a look at professional basketball. The expectations change once again. Professional coaches inherit athletes who have already spent years developing their fundamental skills and basketball understanding. Their responsibility isn't to build a player from the ground up. Their responsibility is to maximize performance. While winning matters, playoffs matter, championships matter, contracts, careers, and organizational success depend on results. The same is true for national teams. National team coaches often have only a short period to prepare for international competition. They don't have months to rebuild fundamentals or gradually install new habits. Their responsibility is to maximize the talent already available and create the most competitive possible within a limited time frame. Well, that isn't a better approach. It's simply a different responsibility. And this is where I believe many coaching conversations lose clarity. We often compare coaches working in completely different environments as though they should all coach the same way. They shouldn't. A youth coach who prioritizes long term growth shouldn't be criticized for making decisions that don't maximize today's scoreboard. Likewise, a professional coach shouldn't be prioritized for prioritizing performance when winning is a central part of the organization's mission. The real issue isn't whether development or performance is more important. The real issue is whether your daily coaching decisions align with the responsibility you have accepted. Because every coach has a philosophy. Some write it on their website, some include it in recruiting presentations, some share it with parents before the season begins. But in coaching, your philosophy isn't ultimately defined by what you say. It is defined by what you consistently do. Now, rest of the episode, I would like to explore the difference between a coach's stated philosophy and the philosophy revealed through daily decisions. Discuss how priorities should change throughout a season and examine why true coaching excellence begins with alignment between your mission and your actions. Your philosophy isn't defined by what you say. It is defined by what you consistently do. That's a statement that I like to say all the time. I believe that's one of the hardest truths for coaches to accept. Because every organization has what I call two philosophies. The first is declared philosophy. And this is what appears on their website all the time in in recruiting presentations, in parent meetings, in mission statements, in daily conversations. It is what we tell people we believe. The second is the operational philosophy. This is revealed through our daily decisions. It answers questions such as who receives meaningful opportunities, how are mistakes handled, what determines playing time, what happens when development and winning come into conflict. Those decisions reveal who we really are as coaches. It's easy to say we are a development program. It's much harder to make decisions that consistently support that claim. Imagine a close game with 2 minutes remaining. Do you trust the younger player you have been trying to develop? Or do you immediately turn to your most experienced athletes? There isn't always a right or wrong answer, right? The answer depends on your mission. If your primarily responsibility is development, then your decision should reflect that, even when it is uncomfortable. If your primary responsibility is performance and winning, then it's perfectly reasonable for your decisions to reflect that as well. The problem begins when our words and our actions point in different directions. Because players notice, parents notice, assistant coaches notice, eventually we notice it too. Consistency builds trust, and mixed messages create confusion. Another important lesson I have learned is that your priorities shouldn't remain the same from the first practice to the final game of the season. A season has different phases, and great coaches recognize when their priorities need to evolve. During the preseason, development should dominate your thinking, your teaching habits, introducing concepts, building relationships, experimenting with lineups, and creating your team's identity. Mistakes are expected because players are learning. As the regular season begins, competition naturally becomes more important, but learning shouldn't stop though. Players are still adapting, roles are still developing, and your team is still growing. By the middle of the season, the balance begins to shift. You continue to develop players, but you also begin refining rotations, improving execution, and preparing for meaningful games. Development and performance begin working together. Then, if you are fortunate enough to reach the playoffs or championship phase, the priorities often change again. And at that point, performance usually becomes the primary focus. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. Your team has spent months building its foundation. Now the responsibility is to perform at its highest level. The mistake isn't shifting priorities, the mistake is pretending you haven't. When coaches are honest about those changes, players understand them. They know why practices look different. They know why decisions become more tactical. They understand that the objective has changed because the season has changed. Honesty creates clarity. Now, I'd like to return briefly to university basketball because I believe it's one of the most challenging environments to coach. University coaches wear many hats. They are teachers and mentors and recruiters and leaders and competitors. They care deeply about their athletes, but they also operate in an environment where results matter. Because of their reality, I think university basketball asks one of the most important coaching questions. Are we developing players to succeed only within our own system? Or are we helping them become adaptable basketball players who can succeed in many different systems? Well, there's an important difference there. Basketball is consistently evolving. Coaches change, systems change, countries play differently, professional opportunities require adjustment, and great development prepares athletes not only for today's system, but for tomorrow's challenges too. Helping players become adaptable doesn't mean abandoning your philosophy. It means teaching principles that travel with the athlete wherever basketball takes them. And that, in my opinion, is one of the highest forms of coaching. As I reflect on every level of basketball, from grassroots programs to professional leagues, I keep coming back to one conclusion. Development and performance are not opponents, they are partners. Every coach uses both. The difference is simply which one leads your decision making. A youth coach should never ignore competition. Competition teaches resilience, teamwork, accountability, and emotional control. Likewise, a professional coach never stops developing players. Even the best athletes continue learning and improving throughout their careers. The question has never been whether development or performance is more important. The real question is which one should lead my decisions today? Your answer depends on the athletes you coach. It depends on your organization. It depends on your level. It depends on the phase of your season. And most importantly, it depends on the responsibility you have accepted. Before I finish today, I would like to leave you with a challenge. The next time you plan a practice, the next time you decide your starting lineup, the next time you determine playing time, or you evaluate a player's mistake, don't ask yourself, what would an NBA coach do? I don't want you to ask yourself, what would a national team coach do either? Instead, I want you to ask yourself, what does my environment require? What responsibility have I accepted? Do my decisions consistently reflect the coach I say I want to be? Because great coaching isn't about copying another level of basketball. It's about understanding your own. The best youth coaches don't try to become professional coaches. The best professional coaches don't try to coach youth basketball. The best coaches understand their environment, accept its responsibilities, communicate them honestly, and make decisions that consistently align with their mission. And that's what creates trust. That's what creates clarity. And ultimately, that's what creates great coaches. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Beyond the Scoreboard. Remember, championships may define a season, but your influence as a coach will always extend far beyond the score. Until next time, keep coaching with purpose, keep learning, and never forget that the greatest victories often happen beyond the scoreboard.